Good morning. I am currently at Alki Beach in West Seattle. It's a really uppity, well-to-do neighborhood, literally on the beach of the Puget Sound. I'm about to go work in a multi-million-dollar house, a house that has an elevator. It has a hot tub that's in the garage, like in the floor, so you just raise the lid and you have a hot tub. Just lots of money, and it is an interesting, I don't want to, like, juxtaposition isn't quite the right word, but when you think about a homeless guy going to go work on a multi-million-dollar home, it makes you question what's going on with society. And the crazy left people will say late stage capitalism, while totally ignoring government corruption and interference in our lives and in the marketplace. And it's not just like a little bit of corruption and a little bit of influence or interference, because if it was just a little bit, maybe I'd be like, okay, this is capitalism, right? Because the theoretical capitalism of no government intervention whatsoever, it is a theory. It should be a guiding light. But if at the end of the day, we end up with a world where there is such a small government and just a small amount of corruption, because it's inevitable, because humans are humans, we would be able to have a more honest conversation. But until you can admit that tremendous amounts of corruption and interference have been plaguing this country for generations, until you can admit and acknowledge that, we're never going to agree. And it's so unfortunate, because the proof and the evidence is ubiquitous, meaning it's everywhere. Everywhere you look, every rock you lift, you find government corruption and interference in our lives. That is called fascism. Or, you could call it socialism, fascism, collectivism. There's a Venn diagram overlap of all of those things, because they're so very similar and connected. I haven't even got to the subject of the video. I got off on a tangent. I'm sorry, but it's connected, because the people who refuse to acknowledge the horrible things our government is doing and has done are the same people who are the useful idiots, foot soldiers for the New World Order, neoliberal globalists seeking to continue their consolidation of power and resources. These are the people who will be the violent ones. They proved it in 2020 during the Summer of Love protests and riots, and they're continuing to prove it now. I made this prediction. I made a video a while back. It was called "The Stage for Violence Has Been Set." And that was a year or two ago. And it was centered around creating a hatred, absolute hatred for MAGA and anyone who votes for Donald Trump, anyone who disagrees with the socialist collectivist narrative that we need a massive government that may or may not do some horrible things, but we still need them. So those people are the people that are going to escalate the violence. They're going to escalate it. But here's the thing. This is my own belief. And I might make a subtitle, "How can we mitigate this?" or something. I think the conservatives would be better at the violence game. They own more guns. They are less weak, beta, fucking soy boy simp motherfuckers. I just think that if real conflict popped off, the left would start it and the right would dominate. I mean, that's more or less kind of what has happened historically. These revolutionary leftist, revolutionary communist, revolutionary socialist movements, they do gain a little bit of traction and momentum, but I believe the biggest reason they do gain that traction and momentum is because they, in fact, are the ones who are willing to go violent first. And that gives you an automatic advantage. And they even talk about it. Modern day leftists will say, gosh, I know in that video I made, I talked about it. What is that expression that they use? If their backs are up against the wall, they have no other choice but to use violence. But would they consider their backs up against the wall or things like, if you say you cannot trans kids, if you cannot give kids hormone blockers, they think that's them with their backs up against the wall. Or if they think abortion, if you restrict abortion rights, after 3 months or the first trimester, they're going to see that as their back against the wall and that as a justification for the use of violence. And it's so unfortunate that they get so aggressive over these social culture war issues that, in fact, would not be an issue if we could go back to the original point of my video, in that the government is the source of evil and corruption in our world. You have to deal with your social values being constrained because you are supporting a state, a government, an entity that you want to have the rights to infringe on other people's lives. So leftists love the government because they love the idea of infringing on the Second Amendment. Great example. They want to ban guns. They want to push people to eat less meat. They want to push people to use less carbon-based fossil fuels, right? So they love the government if the government's doing something they agree with. They fail to recognize that the government in itself is a double-edged sword. They think they're right. Conservatives also think that they're right, but they're just less obnoxious. And conservatives generally want a smaller government. That's one of their key fundamental ideological pieces. Now, in modern day neoliberal fascist world order times, where we have these things called rhinos, Republicans in name only, so Republicans who are part of the establishment swamp, who are actually not Republicans, they're just corrupt, evil people. Chuck Schumer. No, is it Chuck Schumer? Is that the guy? No. Yes. The old guy. I'm going to pause because I really want to try and... Mitch McConnell. Guys like Mitch McConnell, right? He's not a Republican. He does not have conservative values. He is just a piece of shit oligarch. Because that's what all governments eventually devolve into, is just an oligarchical class where they and their friends make the rules, and they and their friends will print all the money and then get the first massive cut of the newly printed funds. And then a little bit will trickle down through their non-governmental organizations and non-governmental agencies and non-profits, the things that I've been criticized in the past by people like the Brothers Blue about being concerned about, but over the last few weeks I've been vindicated. USAID is just the beginning, but it's egregious. So, in my opinion, the best way we can mitigate and prevent violence is to find a common ground starting point for conversations. And that should be, holy fucking shit. There's been so much corruption going on in our country for the last many generations. We may have different social values, but how can we have a conversation about how to build a society when we've been controlled by tyrants and autocrats? Like the culture wars are a cover. They are a misdirection to cover for the class wars that are absolutely happening. The left no longer cares about the working class. It's really highly unfortunate, but you gotta have that dialectical tension between groups to prevent people from uniting under a common cause against the tyrants. And so I do believe violence is imminent. We're already seeing it. There's this like absolutely weird trans cult that is apparently tracking down border patrol agents. I need to look more into that. ZYZZ or something. ZY something. I've just been learning about it. But yeah, trans cult hunting down border patrol agents and murdering them, right? And so I think we're going to see more of that, unfortunately. I hope we don't. I hope I'm wrong. Sometimes it happens. And it is our responsibility as independent sovereign agents, or people who want to be independent sovereign agents, to do the work to prevent the violence. All right, I gotta go work. Thank you very much for listening. Much love.